The silent comeback is the deadliest. They laughed when you disappeared. They smirked when you went quiet. They called it a failure, a breakdown. But they didn't understand silence. They never saw what was coming. While the world was loud bragging, posting, pretending you were still, you were rebuilding in the dark, not begging for validation, not announcing your next move. You were working, grinding, healing, upgrading, because a real comeback doesn't need applause, it doesn't need a warning. It arrives unannounced, clean, sharp, undeniable, and when it hits, there's no defense. Silence is misunderstood. Most people think it's weakness. They think if you're quiet, you've lost. But silence is the most dangerous part of the storm. It's the pause before the punch, the breath before the beast awakens. See, revenge doesn't always wear rage. It wears discipline. It wears patience. It wears that cold, unreadable look of someone who's done explaining themselves, because real power doesn't chase recognition. It becomes undeniable, and when the time is right, it walks back into the room with no introduction, no noise, no pity. Just presence, a stronger body, a sharper mind, a colder heart. They thought you were done because they couldn't see you. But you weren't hiding, you were recalculating, you were eliminating distractions, cutting off noise, burning old bridges, not out of hate, but evolution. Most comebacks fail because they're loud about plans, loud about pain, loud about proving something. But the silent ones, they don't need to prove, they just become, and when they show up again, the room shifts. People can feel it before you even speak. A stillness that rattles egos, a calm that carries chaos underneath it, because you've seen the fire, you've been broken, bent, humbled, and now there's nothing left to fear, no approval left to chase. This version of you doesn't entertain noise, doesn't argue, doesn't explain, it just executes. The silent comeback doesn't knock on the door, it kicks it off the hinges. It doesn't ask for permission, it takes what's owed quietly, precisely, completely. And the ones who once mocked, they'll watch, speechless, not because they care, but because deep down they know they should have stayed afraid, because the version of you they laughed at was soft, naive, still seeking approval. But this version is forged in solitude, tempered by failure, refined by discipline. There's no more begging, no more defending your worth. You don't talk about what you'll do, you do it, and you let the results echo louder than any rant ever could. While they chase attention, you chase mastery. While they post every win, you stack yours in silence. And when it's time to collect, you won't ask them to clap, they'll be too stunned to move. That's the thing about a silent comeback, it's not just about growth, it's about becoming unrecognizable. The kind of transformation that doesn't need to scream, it stings without trying. Because when you level up in private, they never see where the punch is coming from. They're too busy watching the old version of you. And that version is long gone, buried in the work, left behind in the shadows you crawled through. Now, your presence alone shifts the atmosphere. You walk into a room, and the same people who doubted you start doubting themselves. Not because you said anything, but because your silence says everything. It says, I didn't forget, I didn't quit, I just outgrew the noise. This is what they never understood, that silence is a weapon, a strategy. A warning shot they were too arrogant to hear. They thought they could break you. But you were never breaking, you were building. And now, you move different, no announcements, no explanations, just progress, just results. Just a storm walking quietly onto feet, unshaken, unbothered, unstoppable. Because when you've been to war with yourself, no one else is a threat. When you've faced your own demons, the late nights, the doubt, the fear, the failure, what can their words possibly do? Nothing. They never saw the battles you fought in silence. The mornings you didn't want to get up but did. The nights you wanted to quit but didn't. The thousand little choices no one applauded, but every one of them sharpened the blade. Now you're surgical, precise, efficient. You don't waste time explaining what you've become, you let them feel it. That's the art of the silent comeback. It doesn't scream for attention. It commands it without force, without chaos, without a single wasted breath. You walk different now. Not because you're arrogant, but because you earn this walk, earn this calm, earn the right to move in silence and let your actions speak so loud they make noise without a sound. This isn't revenge, this is resurrection. The kind that doesn't go back to prove anything, it goes forward to take everything. Not out of spite, but because you finally realized you never needed their permission. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to disappear and return unrecognizable, to evolve in silence and arrive as the threat no one calculated for. So let them talk, let them guess, let them underestimate. You won't remind them who you are. You'll reintroduce yourself through results, through presence, through power they didn't think you had the patience to build. Because the truth is, the most dangerous man in the room is the one who says the least and delivers the most. And you've become that man, the man who doesn't chase approval because he's too busy chasing purpose, the man who doesn't react because he's already decided what matters. You don't rise by proving them wrong anymore. You rise by proving yourself right. Every single day, let them keep guessing. Let them tell their version of the story. You've outgrown explanations, you've outgrown validation. You've outgrown the small talk, the fake support, the empty praise. You know what silence brings: clarity, focus, leverage. While they waste their energy playing for attention, you're playing for legacy. While they flash moments, you build momentum, and while they look for shortcuts, you become the standard. You no longer fear being underestimated, you welcome it, because you know what happens next. You've done the work not once, every day, relentlessly, privately, and that's why when you return, you don't ask for a seat at the table. You take the whole damn room, because it's not about being seen anymore. It's about becoming undeniable. The comeback isn't personal, it's principle. It's a commitment you made to yourself when no one was watching, and now that the moment is here, you move through it like a ghost with a mission. No noise, no drama, just results so sharp. They cut through every lie they told about you. That's what makes the silent comeback so deadly, not just that they didn't see it coming, but that when it arrived, there was nothing they could do to stop it. Because you've already won the war, the one inside, and now the rest of the world is just catching up, and they'll try to figure it out how you got so cold. So focused, so precise. They'll say you changed. They'll say you switched up. But they'll never admit it was their doubt that lit the fire. Their silence when you struggled. Their smirks when you lost, their comfort in watching you fall. But now the tables have turned, and you didn't shout for it. You didn't teabag for it. You built it brick by brick in the quiet, in the dark, where warriors are made, because the ones who roar loudest in the beginning rarely finish strong. But the ones who stay silent, they finish with precision. No celebration, no noise. Just an empire where there used to be ashes. You walk in rooms now, and don't explain your absence, you own it. You don't speak of the past, you outgrow it. You don't revisit the pain, you reinvented yourself because of it. And that version of you, the one forged in solitude, raised by discipline and armed with nothing but hunger and clarity, that version is untouchable. You don't chase closure. And the old you gone, you close doors. You don't chase people, you outpace them. When no one clapped for you, that's the price of the silent comeback. You lose people. You lose comfort, you lose illusions. But what you gain is unbreakable. A mindset no one gave you, a power no one can take. And a future that's already bending to your will, because you built the discipline to deserve it. You don't have to remind the world what you're capable of. You just have to keep moving, like the threat they never wanted to face. And that's exactly who you've become. The threat that moves in silence, strikes with precision, and disappears before they even realize what hit them. You've become the consequence of being counted out. The answer to every doubt they whispered behind closed doors. The proof that evolution doesn't need witnesses, just execution. They fed off your setbacks, used your silence to write you off. But what they forgot is that silence isn't surrender. It's strategy, it's restraint, it's power under control. While they were watching each other, competing for attention, you were becoming something else, dangerous. Because when your ambition matures, you stop needing eyes on you. You just need the goal and the grind. No one applauds during the process. No one claps for discipline. No one celebrates the man in the shadows, saying no to comfort over and over again. But that's what builds the edge. That's what separates noise from force. That's what turns a man into a weapon. And now they see it. Too late, the presence, the confidence. The fire in your eyes that doesn't blink anymore. You don't flinch, you don't fold, you move. Deliberate, deadly, and on your own terms. Let them talk, let them wonder how it happened. How the one they dismissed became the one they can't ignore. Because the silent comeback, it never announces its return. It arrives and everything changes. And the best part, you're just getting started. Because this isn't a peak, this is the foundation. What they're seeing now, it's only the surface. Beneath it, years of pain turned into power, disappointment turned into drive, and silence turned into strategy. You no longer move with emotion. You move with intention. Every step has weight. Every action has purpose, and every win, calculated, earned, undeniable. You've learned the rarest skill, how to suffer in private and rise in public without ever needing to explain the gap. You didn't come back for attention, you came back for dominion, to reclaim every inch of yourself they tried to strip away, to build a legacy that doesn't depend on applause, only impact. And now you walk alone, not because you're broken, but because the path to greatness, in crowded, it's carved by the few who can endure the silence. You don't show off, you show up. You don't compete, you dominate, not loudly, not emotionally, but silently, like a storm creeping over the horizon. And when it hits, it doesn't ask questions, it rewrites the rules. That's you now, a storm in stillness. A force wrapped in calm, a man shaped by fire, but no longer burned by it. This isn't a comeback, it's a new era. And every move you make from here won't just be seen, it will be felt. Because once you've tasted what it means to bet on yourself in silence, you never go back to noise, you never shrink again. You never explain your value, you embody it. And when you embody your value, you stop negotiating with people who never saw it. You stop begging rooms to accept you, you build your own. And those who once overlooked you, they start looking up. Not because you demanded respect, but because you became unignorable. You turned the silence they mocked into the foundation they now stand on, just to reach your level. This is the power of the quiet climb. No one sees the steps, just the summit. No one hears the struggle, just the success, but you remember it all. Every door closed in your face, every fake smile. Every time they said, "You'll never make it," you remember, but you don't dwell. Because winners don't waste time proving the past wrong, they prove the future right. And now, every move you make echoes with intent, you speak less. So, your presence speaks more, you need less, so your standards rise higher, you fear less. So, your execution gets sharper, the version of you that once hesitated is gone. The version that over-explained gone. The version that sought approval from people who couldn't even leave themselves buried. In its place stands a man who's mastered restraint. A man who learned that silence isn't the absence of power, it's the proof of it. You don't make noise to remind them who you are, you let the results speak. You let your growth become the warning, because once a man rebuilds himself in private, nothing they say in public can shake him. This is your lane now, no competition, no distractions, just a straight, cold path forward paved with the bones of every excuse you used to make. You've earned the right to be quiet, because you've become the storm they pray never returns. And yet, you're only growing stronger, because the storm they fear, that's just your baseline now. You no longer rise out of rage. You rise out of purpose, out of clarity. Out of a cold, calculated vision that doesn't bend to noise or emotion. Every day you wake up focused, not on proving them wrong, but on becoming undeniably right. Your goals no longer revolve around revenge, they revolve around domination. Personal, professional, mental, you're not here to compete. You're here to control outcomes, and they don't know how to handle that. Because silence they can mock, but consistency, precision, discipline, that's what terrifies them. Because they can replicate it, they can fake it, they can stop it. You're no longer motivated by being doubted. That phase is over now. You're driven by vision. You've tasted the power of discipline, and once you do, motivation becomes irrelevant. You no longer need a reason, you are the reason. And while they're still talking about who they used to be, you're becoming who they'll never catch. You stop sharing your goals because you realized the loudest goals are often backed by the weakest habits. But your habits, they're silent killers, relentless, unforgiving. They don't sleep, and neither do you, not until every inch of your vision is reality. You don't tell people what's coming, you become it. And by the time they realize, you're already 10 steps ahead. Calm, composed and absolutely untouchable, because that's what happens when you build in silence. You stop rushing, you stop chasing, you stop needing to be seen. And instead, you start becoming inevitable. They'll try to trace your steps, but your path was never public. It was forged in solitude, in sweat, in the moments you didn't post, didn't complain, didn't need a pat on the back, you just did the work. Now the results speak for you. The aura hits first, you don't need a loud entrance. Your energy, does the talking people sense it? They feel the shift when you walk in. Not because you're loud, but because you're locked and unshaken. Unreachable, untouchable, there's a point where a man becomes so grounded, so clear, so cold in his mission, nothing can faze him. That's where you are now. The world is still playing checkers, you're already past the chessboard. You're playing life on a level they'll never understand. Not because you're lucky, but because you refused to quit when it was quiet. They lines say you changed, no, you just stopped explaining yourself to people who were never built to understand you. This is what they didn't expect. Not the comeback, not the strength, not the silence. They thought they were watching you fall, but really, they were watching you reload. And now you're walking with no leash, no fear, no brakes. Because the comeback they thought would be loud and desperate turned out to be silent, strategic, and deadly beyond belief, and by the time they realize it, it's too late. You've already taken the ground they thought was theirs. You've already mastered the craft they mocked. You've already become the version of yourself they never believed could exist. And now they're scrambling for explanations. Where did this come from? How did he change so fast? But it wasn't fast, it was silent, it was constant. It was the result of every night you showed up when no one was watching. Every morning you trained, built, studied, without applause, without noise, without validation. They wanted spectacle, you built structure. They wanted moments, you built momentum. And now, their words mean nothing, because your results don't need defending. This isn't about being flashy. This is about being formidable. A different breed, unmoved by chaos, unchained from opinion. You walk like a man who knows he's earned everything he has, and everything that's coming. They thought the silent phase meant you were finished. But silence was your armor. Silence was your clarity. Silence was the signal that something powerful was being formed, away from their noise, away from their timelines, away from their cheap validation. And now that you're back, you don't need to fight for space. You command it, not with words, not with noise, but with presence, with proof, with precision that cuts through every doubt they once used as a weapon against you. This is what they never understood. You weren't just making a comeback. You were becoming something they've never seen before, something built from pressure, but no longer bent by it, something born in isolation, but now too powerful to be ignored. Not just a man who returned, a man reborn, with nothing to prove and everything to execute. You don't walk the same now. You don't carry doubt in your chest anymore. You carry conviction, a weightless kind of confidence that only comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you're capable of. They spent time chasing attention, you spent time building capacity. They got louder, you got lethal. And now they're realizing the most dangerous man is the one screaming for revenge. It's the one who disappeared, leveled up in silence, and reemerged with nothing left to lose, and nothing left to fear. You don't flinch when challenged, you don't shrink when doubted, because when a man has built himself back from nothing, from failure, from betrayal, from loss, there's nothing the world can throw at him that he hasn't already faced in the mirror. This is your power now, not your strength, but your stillness, not your rage, but your restraint. Not how loud you strike, but how quietly you prepare. And the truth is, you're not done, you're just getting started. The comeback wasn't the goal, it was the activation. Now you move forward like a shadow, calm, precise, unstoppable, while the rest are still trying to make noise. You're already shaping outcomes. Let them wonder, let them talk, let them scramble to catch up. Because the moment they finally understand what you've become will be the moment you're already 10 moves past them, calm, calculated, and completely in control, and by then, there's no conversation left to have. Because real power doesn't argue, it just wins quietly, ruthlessly, consistently. You don't need to explain your evolution to anyone, you are the explanation, you walk it. You breathe it, and when people look at you now, They don't see the same man because he doesn't exist anymore. You're no longer the man who asks, will they accept me? Now you ask, do they even qualify to stand near me? Because this comeback, it wasn't for them, it was for you. For the days you doubted your worth, for the nights you almost broke. For the future that was always yours, you just had to become the man worthy of it, and now that you are, there's no going back, not to the noise, not to the drama, not to the fake friendships, the weak standards, or the watered-down version of yourself you used to present to make others comfortable. This is your era now, unapologetic, unbothered, unmatched. You don't move with emotion, you move with strategy. You don't chase outcomes, you engineer them. And every room you enter from here on out will feel the shift, whether they admit it or not. Because you didn't just survive, you ascended? And the silence they thought meant defeat, that was just the sound of you becoming a problem they'll never solve, and now you are that problem, the kind that doesn't flinch, doesn't speak, doesn't need to be understood, only respected. You're not here to compete anymore, you've transcended competition. Because when you've built yourself in the shadows, when you've stripped away every weakness, when you've stared at your own flaws and destroyed them piece by piece, you stop asking who's better, and start asking what's next. You move like a man on assignment. Not rushing, not explaining, not adjusting for anyone's comfort. Because once you've tasted full control over your time, your energy, your standards, you never go back to chaos. And the lines try to reconnect, the lines try to circle back, but not because they believe in you now. Because they feel the shift, because you've become something useful, or worse, something intimidating, but you don't owe them a seat. You don't owe them closure, you don't even owe them a conversation. You owe yourself continuity, you owe yourself momentum, and you protect that at all costs. Let them think you're cold. Let them call you distant. That's the price of peace, of power, of no longer entertaining anything that distracts from the mission. Because this isn't about proving anything. It's about becoming everything you said you would be, when no one believed you could. You're not loud, you're not bitter, you're not looking back, you're walking forward with eyes clear, hands steady, and a future waiting to be claimed, not explained. And there's no need to announce it. The real ones feel it, the weak ones fear it, and the rest, they'll just be left confused, wondering how the man they counted out became the man they now can't reach. You don't chase credit. You don't ask for recognition, because you've already built something far more powerful. Certainty in your steps, certainty in your worth, certainty in your direction. The lines measure your silence as arrogance, because they've never seen a man who doesn't need attention to validate his identity. But that's the edge now, you don't need them. You never did, you just forgot for a while, now you remember. Every loss sharpened you, every rejection redirected you. Every moment of solitude refined you, and now you don't fold under pressure, you apply it. You're not reactive anymore, you're intentional. You don't hope things work out, you make sure they do. And when you enter a room, you don't speak to be heard, you move to be felt. There's a shift in your presence now, you're not explaining your goals, you're executing them. You're not broadcasting your plans, you're delivering results. And when people ask what changed, the answer is simple: everything. Because once you commit to the quiet grind, to the painful rebuild, to the version of you that lives in discipline, clarity, and fire, there's no turning back. You've become the thing they didn't see coming, the thing they now can't stop watching, not out of love but out of awe. You've turned your silence into strategy, your pain into precision, and your absence into a statement. You didn't just make a comeback, you made a statement of dominance, and now you walk forward, not to prove, not to please, but to conquer. And conquest isn't always loud, it's not always visible. It happens in the early mornings, in the uncelebrated hours, in the quiet discipline of a man who no longer negotiates with weakness. You've realized something most never will. Power isn't given, it's taken, and not through noise, not through showmanship, but through the quiet destruction of every excuse you used to cling to. The reason your presence hits different now is because it's not built on talk, it's built on truth, on consistency, on war within yourself that you've already won. You've walked through the fire alone. You've built in isolation, battled in silence, and now you walk like a man who fears nothing inside himself. And that's the most dangerous kind of man there is. Because when you no longer fear the work, the losses, the lonely nights, you become untouchable. You no longer need momentum from others. You create your own daily deliberately, without compromise. They'll try to figure out the formula. They'll try to copy your discipline, mimic your moves, mirror your intensity. But what they'll never replicate is your why. They weren't there when it broke you. They didn't hear the silence that almost crushed you. They didn't feel the weight you carried with no one watching. That's what makes your comeback lethal. It's not just that you returned. It's that you came back forged, calculated, and free. You don't answer to their opinions. You don't shrink for their comfort. You don't explain your evolution, you live it. And every step forward now, it's just a move, it's a message. I'm not the same. I'm sharper. I'm colder. I'm here and I'm not leaving. The silent comeback isn't a phase, it's the new standard. And the man who walks it never goes back to the noise. He just keeps rising relentlessly, quietly, permanently, and that rise, it no longer needs validation. It doesn't need to be witnessed, shared, or praised. Because when you've built yourself from the bottom, brick by brutal brick, you learn something deeper than ambition. You learn ownership. You own your pain. You own your flaws. You own every scar, every setback, every silent night you got back up without applause. And now you own your future. This level of control, it's not about being feared. It's about being unmoved by opinions, unmoved by pressure, unmoved by anything that doesn't serve the mission. You've killed the need to be liked. You've buried the version of you that waited to be chosen. Now, you choose yourself daily, without hesitation, without negotiation. You walk like a man with nothing left to prove, and everything left to build. And when people ask how you did it, you won't have a speech, you'll have receipts, results. Proof that silence isn't weakness, it's preparation. It's composure, it's pure power, aimed with precision. They thought silence meant you were broken, they were wrong. Silence meant you were becoming dangerous. And now, everything you touch moves with impact. Every word, every action, lands with weight because it comes from truth, not performance. You're no longer chasing potential, you're activating it. You're not hoping to arrive, you're already here. And the world, it can either adjust or get left behind. Because this comeback, it doesn't pause, it doesn't explain, it doesn't soften for anyone, it moves forward. Without noise, without warning, without mercy.